Hello, I'm Lizzie and this is Lizzie Reads, and welcome to New Year, New Videos. So for the first 7 days of 2023, I will be doing a video every day, wrapping up 2022 and talking about my 2023 plans. First up, we have my 2022 Wrapped. Happy New Year everyone. It is the 1st of January today when filming because I didn't want to film ahead for any of these videos, mainly because A, I didn't have time, that's why I didn't upload for most of December, and B, because I wanted to wait for the year to finish. So just any late things can creep in there and get going. So let's talk about what I sort of did in 2022, my year wrapped up for reading. I'm going to be looking at 2022's goals and whether I achieved them or not, but also I'm going to be looking at sort of some of the stats for the year as well. So let's get into it. The first and most important goal was how many books did I want to read? What was my story graph goal? My reading goals video for last year, I did say that I wanted to read 150 books, but I wanted to have a stretch goal of 200. So I achieved the 150 books, and then I made my goal on story graph 175 when it was obvious I was going to achieve that. But unfortunately, I didn't achieve 175, so I never made it to the stretch goal. I marked it as complete because my original goal was 150, but I thought that I would quite easily get to 175 because of the year previously, so 2021, I read 178. But I did have some major reading slumps in 2022, major for me. Mainly because I just read so much and I have quite a fast reading pace and I read a lot of short books, mainly induced by the fact that we got our flat and we had to renovate it. That took up a lot of time and a lot of stress and a lot of time that I just wasn't reading. So, you know, I feel like that's fair enough. I had written down my pages goal to be 50,000. I achieved that, and then I think I increased it to 60,000, which I didn't achieve. I was about like 800 pages off. See, because I set my goals so high, people might think that I'm a bit annoyed that I didn't get my goals, but I don't really care. I don't need the check mark on story graph to know that I had a pretty good reading year. I think reading that many books is incredible, so I definitely had a good reading year in my opinion. I talked about in my video about wanting to read more widely and different genres, but also get back into chunky fantasies. I'm not sure that I did this. I think I mainly read romance and that's it. I read I read a few fantasies. Towards the end of the year, I started my Back to Fantasy series, where I was trying to get back into fantasy, but I wasn't having great success with it. So I personally don't think that this is achieved. I think the intent was there to read more widely and read a variety. I read a variety of romance. That was well enjoyed. But anything other than that, it just wasn't, because of how busy my year was, I headed straight for comfort, which is fine. I had a YouTube goal of uploading 6 to 8 videos a month with like no sort of pressure there on if I did that or not. I only uploaded 45 videos last year, so I didn't even make one video a week, which is a shame. I'm really disappointed in this. There were points of the year where I was doing really well and then I let it drop and then I let it go again. So it is really difficult for me. I always want to make videos, but sometimes I feel like there are just other things that I have to prioritize more, unfortunately. Sorry, that's not what you want to hear watching this video, but it's the truth. So also I talked in my video, the next goal, about how I wanted to partake in some reading sprints, and I did this. I joined Becca and Cassidy and Christy on sprints, which was so fun. I had a great time joining reading sprints. I didn't get to host any. I mean, I definitely could have done, but it was just something that there was like a nervousness barrier there, which hopefully I will break in 2023. But yes, I partly did this goal, but not completely. The other one was that I wanted to put a lot more focus in my other hobbies, so that would be YouTube, scrapbooking and things like that. I didn't really do this. I am really behind on scrapbooking. I haven't done this Christmas, let alone last Christmas. I'm like 2 Christmases behind on scrapbooking. So that's not great. And by the fact that I only uploaded 48 videos, I feel like that doesn't show that I put a lot more into my other hobbies. I also talked about wanting to be more active. I definitely am more active than I was this time last year, but not to the extent I hoped to be. I've just been getting a lot more fresh air and walks and stuff, but not quite as many, due to just the busyness of this year. Absolutely killed me, absolutely broke me. So I also mentioned about prioritising like my self-care and my mental health. I acknowledged my mental health more. I thought more about how my mental health was impacting me and sort of rode the wave a little bit more. But I don't think I did enough to sort of quantify prioritising my mental health, because I don't always do that. And finally, my other personal goal that I mentioned was to save, because in 2022 I wanted us to have our first home, and we achieved that. And I can't talk about it too much because I will literally cry, because I'm so happy and over the moon. I did shed some tears in my 26 birthday goals review, my birthday goals review and new goals video. So yeah, I am very happy to have achieved that goal. So I'm going to have a little look at my stats now on Storygraph. There aren't too many to sort of tell you about. So as I said, I read 172 books, totaling 59,205 pages, which is incredible. The moods I find never really change. It's always adventurous, emotional, light-hearted. They're the main ones. Adventurous is the main thing that's marked on all books that I read. For pace, I read 43% fast pace, 44% medium pace, and 13% slow pace, which I think is quite reflective of my personal tastes. I wouldn't want to read something that isn't my personal taste. For page number, I got 23%, 500 plus, 37%, 300 to 500, and 40% under 300. I read a lot of short books, so that's why there's a lot under 300 there. I read 4% non-fiction, which is 6 books that are non-fiction, and 96% fiction. I would like it to be a little bit more skewed to the non-fiction. I do like reading non-fiction, and I'm going to set in place some goals to read a little bit more non-fiction, because I only read 6. For my genres, a whopping 105 books were romance, 68 were fantasy, and then it's contemporary, LGBTQIA+, even though that's not a genre, young adult, science fiction, graphic novel, but mostly fantasy and romance. The thing is with genres for Storygraph, they all sort of correlate together. So if I read a fantasy romance, it would appear twice in those stats. It says here my most read author was Ruby Dixon, because I read 14 Ice Planet Barbarian books, and then Jennifer L. Armentrout, 11, because I reread the From Blood and Ash series twice, because there was 2 From Blood and Ash series world releases this year. Then we've got 11 Robin Hobb books, which I think is pretty good, because I have been loving Robin Hobb. And then we've got Elle Kennedy, Isla Madam Mills, Stephanie Meyer, because I reread the Twilight books in October, completely off-channel kind of thing. S.T. Abbey, who wrote the Mindfuck series, Krista and Becca Ritchie, and then Rick Riordan coming in just after that. Looking at the number of books and pages, you can see where my reading really dipped. So I read the most in April, which was for Realmathon, which I loved participating in. It was so good. Then in May and June, we got the keys to our flat, and we're renovating the flat, and then it moved in late June, early July. So those months were really slow, and then just like adjusting to life in the flat, and then it starts to pick up. In October I had a really good reading month again, but still not comparable to my beginning of the year reading. And then dipped off again towards the end of the year when I had one of the worst reading months of the year. But star ratings are pretty good. I tend to rate quite positively. It's just the way I rate books. I wouldn't put much stock in my ratings. It's more about what I say about the books. Yeah, so that's the end of the stats. I looked at some books that I read that I consider to be out of my comfort zone. So I've been drawn to recently books that I read more of the books that I used to read and used to love. So I used to really love literary fiction. I used to really love historical fiction. I used to really love non-fiction. I'm not including non-fiction in this category, but it still does kind of count. And these things, the concepts really interest me, but the idea of sitting down reading them, I just can't get behind it. Now, I don't think that's necessarily anything to do with the books. It's just the way that I think of these books, and I think of these books as scary. So one of them, for example, even though it is considered fantasy, is Babel. Now, Babel was a complete miss for me this year. I read it. It was one of the 2 books that I considered to be out of my comfort zone that I read that was not a non-fiction. And I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't enjoy something that's written like really wordy again, or has more of a literary leaning theme. I don't think that those things should be avoided for me, but I have been avoiding them. So I'm potentially considering doing a little bit more reading of that kind in future weeks and months and in the year. Another one that I've listed as out of my comfort zone, and that is To Be Taught If Not Fortunate by Becky Chambers, because this is a science fiction novella, but it is sort of presented in a kind of a very literary way. It's loved by a lot of literary fiction fans, as well as science fiction. Science fiction is not one of my genres, not a genre that I go into very, very rarely. I cannot tell you many science fiction books I have ever read, if at all. So I've included that in my sort of out of my comfort zone area. But yeah, I kind of really liked that one a lot more. But there was only 2 books I read this whole year were out of my comfort zone, and I feel like I could push myself a little bit more and try to find a bit more of a varied reading, because I feel like my reading this year was very one track. But we'll see how we get on. I have to say I have absolutely loved reading romance this year. It's been an absolute saviour in some really stressful times, and that's not going to change. I'm still now wholeheartedly, admittedly, a romance girly, and I will do a romance reading wrap up later in the month, like to talk about how my romance journey is going and how I feel like I am with that. But I am just really loving reading at the moment, but I've just not been doing it enough. So all in all, I suppose I have been pretty good. I didn't put too much pressure on myself. I didn't reach my goal, and that's okay. Yeah, so this is just going to be a quick one because I don't want to bore you, because I know you've watched loads of these videos, but if you were interested, this is how my reading year has gone. We've still got my reading goals to come, my January TBR to come, so I'm starting strong with my new goals. We've got my best and worst books of the year to come. We've got a few other little wrap up videos and talking about certain things and certain TBRs that I've got set for the year based on my goals, but I will not be talking about them in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely January, and the first day of this year goes well for you. I'll speak to you again soon. Goodbye.